A small southern town, and police are responding to a reckless driver. Lieutenant Michael Etchison, along with his partner, Mike Head, has been dispatched. The man Etchison is pursuing, Jimmy League, is at a dangerous breaking point, and a routine traffic stop is about to turn into a nightmare. In the minutes to come, lives will change, lives will end, and the town of Monroe will never be the same.
In the Line of Duty, the Michael Etchison story, sponsored by Walton Regional Medical Center.
At Walton Regional Medical Center, we're here for you.
We're here for your emergency.
For your physical therapy.
And your family.
For you.
With clinical excellence.
With compassionate care.
And advanced technology.
We're here for you.
Today and in the future.
Walton Regional Medical Center. We're here for you.
Lieutenant Michael Etchison and his partner, Mike Head, are on the Monroe PD's morning shift. They are the only officers on duty. From a broken family and poverty, Etchison has worked hard to make something of his life. As a 4-year veteran of the force, he has just been promoted to lieutenant. His partner, Officer Mike Head, has already experienced his baptism under fire, though such drama is rare in sleepy Monroe. From all appearances, this morning will be like most others, uneventful. But appearances can be deceiving, as both officers are about to discover. Michael Etchison is no stranger to difficult situations. Born in 1950 Monroe, he spends much of his childhood on Turner Street, one of the toughest neighborhoods in town.
Mama had to run away because of the abuse that she had as a wife. We was from a single parent household, and Mom had to work, so he had to take care of us younger children. Michael was a straight arrow like Mama. I think all of us are, because that's the way she taught us.
Through hard times and poverty, Etchison dreams of becoming a policeman, and as he comes into his teens, Michael Etchison's life takes a turn for the better. At Carver High, Etchison does custodial work before classes and devotes himself to his studies. He finds time to play lineman for the Carver Wildcats. Though not a starter, Etchison is proud to do his part for the team. Etchison, like most young men, has a love affair with fast cars. He has a 1959 Ford, and he prides himself on his abilities as a drag racer. His senior year, Etchison asked Robbie Mapp, a junior, to be his date to the prom.
We was all dressed up, tuxedos, long dresses, long gloves, and it was just all set up so nice. And that was the first time I ever gone to anything so formal.
Michael and Robbie hit it off and formed a relationship.
My mom liked him because he went to church. My mom and dad liked him. My dad was a deacon, my mom was a mother, so she liked him because his mother had raised him so proper, and he would always dress up in a suit when he came to see me. He was always well-mannered, everything.
After Robbie graduates, Etchison proposes and she accepts. For Etchison, a new life is about to begin.
And he married to Robbie Mapp. I performed the ceremony right here in the sanctuary.
And then like 2.5 years later, I got pregnant. Oh, he was just thrilled to death. And from the first on, it was gonna be Michael Everett Etchison Jr.
Etchison is ecstatic to be a father. Etchison is leading what he sees as a charmed existence. Meanwhile, another of Etchison's dreams has come true, a dream that has followed him since childhood. Michael Etchison has joined the Monroe Police Department.
Michael was very proud to become a police officer. You know, that was his childhood dream, and we were very proud for him.
Mike was the kind of officer that you didn't have to worry about whether he was behind you or whether he was in front of you, because he was always there.
He was always very laid back, no matter how stressful the situation was. Always seemed to handle things in stride, but most of the things that I remember is how well he treated people. He dealt with a lot of difficult situations. Dealing with criminals is not easy, but he always seemed to treat them as human beings.
Etchison likes to tell the tale of how, when still new to the force, he is sent to arrest his own father.
His father was John Etchison, and God rest his soul. He drank too much, and he would get in fights.
And they got a call at George Walton home that Mr. Jack was cutting up. And, you know, they said, let's get this to Michael. They laughed. Michael went there, he told us, and said his dad saw him coming. And he said, "That's my boy right there." That's what he said. And he said, "Hey, Dad," said, "I heard you been, you know, cutting up." He said, "Daddy, I want you to come go with me." And say, he put his arm around Michael's shoulders, you know, and said, "I'll go with you. Yeah, I'll go with you. I won't go with nobody else, but I'll go with you." And Mike said, "Come on, Daddy. I have to, you know, handcuff you and put you in the back seat." And he said he was just telling everybody, "This is my son right here. This is my boy." You know, very proud. But Michael didn't have any incident with his father. And he arrested him.
But Etchison's approach to policing does not endear him to either side of the color divide in 1970s Monroe.
And at that time, there were still some people in this area that didn't believe that a black officer should stop a white person, which was wrong, of course. But there were people that felt that way, and they disliked it. There were also some blacks in this town, in this area, you know, that believed that because he was, that he should make exception for them or treat them differently, and he didn't do that. You know, he treated everybody pretty much the same.
Once he came to Mama and told her that he was having trouble being an officer. He didn't understand why he couldn't arrest white people like he could the black people. And she was telling him about things were going to change, and they were going to pray for change.
But change does not come easily for Monroe or Etchison, underlined when Etchison arrests the son of a prominent citizen.
We came down to City Hall and met with Chief Homer Stevens and Dr. Phil Insland, who was head of the police committee. And they were talking to us about dropping the case against this young man. And Mike told him, says, "I can't drop the case," said, "It's a good case." They looked at me and said, "What about you, Officer Head?" And I said, "I'm not touching it." I said, I don't have enough experience to overrule him, and he says the case stays, I'm with him. They looked at our captain, Tank Breedlove, and Tank says, "They're doing their job, I'm not going to get involved." A few weeks later, Mike was assigned to mark meters, or mark tires up here on parking detail. And, you know, of course, a lot of officers were thinking, you know, he's not going to put up with this, he's going to quit or something. He didn't. He came in every morning when he was supposed to. He went up the street, he did his job. He said, "I'm just doing my job." He said, you know, they haven't cut my pay or anything. He said, "I'm going to continue to do my job like I've always done my job."
But it didn't kill his spirit. He walked the street with pride because he knew he had did what was right.
It wasn't too long after that they promoted him to lieutenant.
It is a supreme moment for Michael Etchison. A change has indeed come. What Etchison does not know is that the life of another Monroe resident is spiraling dangerously out of control. It is one Jimmy Lee. Adopted, he later goes into the Air Force, gets an education, and gains a wife and 2 children. But a divorce in the early 70s triggers a nervous breakdown.
He was an entirely different person. He was not the Jimmy that we had known all these years. He just could not handle it. And we sought help for him so many times.
Then a miracle occurs for Jimmy League in the person of Kay Shore, whose very presence has a calming effect on his fevered mind.
When we first met, he was just happy-go-lucky, wanted to go places, do things. We would go to the mountains sometimes. He had a '65 Mustang convertible when we first met, and we would go to the mountains and have the top back, and he would laugh and sing with the radio.
When Jimmy met Kay, he changed. He became like normal, and he was for a while. Yes, he was, and I thought this is very good for Jimmy.
In the summer of 1975, Jimmy League and Kay Shore are married.
But then it changed again, and he changed into the other person.
He started one night just talking, and I thought he was talking to me, and all of a sudden I realized he wasn't. And I asked him, was he okay? And he said, yeah. He said, they're talking. I said, can't you hear them?
He would be talking to someone or something. If you ask him, he would say something like that, talking to the gray ghost, can't you hear him? He was not himself.
He had started getting his guns out, and he had a pistol, a .22 pistol, and he would wave it around in the air.
Concerned for her own safety, Kay is forced to act.
I decided it was time for me to go.
In early October, League threatens to kill Kay's mother. His uncle Bobby McDonnell intervenes.
He had a .30-30, and Bobby, my husband, took the .30-30 away from him. We knew that it was like a powder keg. Sooner or later, it was going to blow up.
With the torment of his delusions shaping his reality, Jimmy League reaches a desperate crossroads. The path he chooses next will affect many lives, including that of Michael Etchison and his partner, Mike Head. So far, the morning has been quiet. Etchison and Head prepare to break for an early lunch. The only blip on the radar is several reports of a reckless driver, enticing police to chase and then outrunning them.
The morning had gone very quietly, and then approximately 11:15, 11:30, we got this call that a car was coming into the City of Monroe, and for the officers to be on the lookout for it.
Pat Breelove had called at that time and said that Ray Parker and Tommy Fricks, who was working a detail out at Wendy's, had called and said that they had spotted League coming back into town.
I waved the traffic out into the street. He pulled out real slow, very, very slow, got even with me and turned and looked at me and just smiled and then floored it. And I hollered at Tommy and told him, I said, Tommy, call in. I said, that's the guy they're looking for. That's the lookout.
The best I can remember, they had just ordered their lunch, and they got up immediately, left their lunch.
So we went out to the car, and as we were walking toward the car, Mike had told me to flip him the keys because I had been driving earlier that day. And I said, sure, flipped him the keys, and about that time, Jimmy League passed us on South 11, headed south on 11, and just looked at us with a stare, like, here I am, come and get me. Me and Mike got in the car, called out and said, Monroe, we've got him spotted. We're going to try to take him down.
Etchison and Head give chase. League isn't traveling at high speed, but he refuses to pull over. Instead, he motions for the officers to come around.
Mike said, you know, I think I'm going to see if I can put him in the ditch. And I said, no, don't do that. Something's not right, Mike. He knows we're after him. He knows that we want him to pull over.
Ahead of the chase, County Deputies Bill Cody and Dink Williams set up a roadblock to cut League off.
And League slowed down at this point like he was going to stop. And as Bill stepped out from behind the car door and approached him, he raised a pistol up and shot Bill point blank in the chest. Dink tried to shoot, but he had nothing there to shoot. So he racked another one in the shotgun and he fired another round.
A mile and a half down the road, the chase ends when League's car blows a tire.
Be careful, he's getting out. Be careful.
And everything happened so quick at this time, we didn't even have a chance to call out that we were stopping. As I come out of the car, I went out on the ground, come up, went to shoot at League because he was shooting at us with a .22 rifle. I went to rack another round in, and the weapon jammed, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I threw it down on the ground, and I went to my pistol. At that time, we carried revolvers, .357. League and I had shot a couple of times across me shooting across the hood of the car in his direction. And I felt a bullet had evidently ricocheted off the hood of the car, and I just felt it basically just part my hair, felt like. And I thought, damn, I got to keep my head down. So League would get up and run across the bank like he was trying to get around the back end of it. He was like a man on a mission. Somewhere when I was at the front of the car, I don't know how, but I got this leg evidently too far out in front of the bumper or something. Anyway, he shot me in this right leg. I remember I reached down, I drew blood. I said, damn, I done been shot. He caught me one time when I was shooting. I was standing on this left leg, getting ready to shoot across the top of the car in his direction. And a bullet ricocheted or something. Anyway, I got shot in my left foot then. And I went down. I remember thinking, Lord, I don't want to be in like this, not on the highway. And I thought about my wife, and I had a son about 14 and a half months old at that time. And he settled in, finally settled down in a prone position across the road from me at the front of the car. And he and I traded shots there. I'd shoot, and then I'd go down, he'd shoot. I'd ease back up and shoot, and he'd go back down. The next shot I took, I come up into the door jamb across the hood, and I cocked the hammer back. And I took that shot, and I dropped back down. And I raised up again and looked again, and he didn't move. So at that time, I crawled back to the car, crawled up in the seat to get the microphone because it had fell down on Mike's side of the car. And I remember seeing Mike laying there, but I also remember his shirt just kind of fluttering. And I thought, well, he's just unconscious. I called in, I told him, I said, Mike's shot, I'm shot, we're both down. We need some help, we need an ambulance, and we need some help quick.
I felt very helpless, but I knew that I had to keep it together. I knew there was a lot of work to be done. I knew I had to get help to them.
And basically what happened to Jimmy, he got the police department, sheriff's department, he got them to do what he didn't have the nerve to do.
Jimmy League lies motionless. Shot in the chest, he dies instantly. Lieutenant Michael Etchison dies where he falls from a single gunshot wound to the head, fired from League's .22 rifle.
My mother came to the job to get me, and I was wondering why she came, so she said it had been an accident. She didn't tell me what, because she was cool. She could take a lot. She said Mom could take a lot, so she was cool. She said it's been an accident, and Michael was in it. And she was driving. She wasn't driving reckless or anything.
I was at home just doing my everyday duties, and the phone rang, and it was Bessie Jackson calling from the center over there, the medical center. And I could tell that something was terribly wrong when I answered the phone. She was almost hysterical.
When I got there, I saw all these police cars and state patrol cars, and all these police were standing out, and I saw Ronnie saw with his head down like he was crying. So I went on in, and they brought me through the emergency room and put me in a wheelchair. And I sit down, and they took me back in the chapel.
And I had been asking everybody about Mike, and nobody would tell me anything. It was, well, he's still out. They haven't brought him in yet. He's still out. And I remember I asked Mr. Homer, Mr. Homer, what's going on? What's going on with Mike? How's Bill? And I remember he told me they were taking him to surgery. And I said, what about Mike? And he just told me, he says, it's a bad deal, Mike.
And then they said, well, it's been an accident, and they have confirmed it, that it was Michael Etchison killed, not Michael Head, but Michael Etchison. And that's when I lost it. I was just screaming and hollering and screaming.
And then I remember, in the next room, I heard somebody crying real loud. And I knew it had to be Mike's wife.
The dead and the wounded, spoils of League's madness. League is viewed simply as a villain, a crazed gunman. Etchison is rightly lauded as a fallen hero. And there is a spontaneous outpouring of grief and sympathy for the Etchisons. There are other victims of League's mayhem as well.
I would like to say that I feel bad for the people that were hurt that day. And for the loss of the police officer's life. But I was hurt that day too.
And we, like the Etchison family, we did not get to say goodbye.
The only consolation is that after emergency surgery, Officer Mike Head and Deputy Bill Cody will both survive their wounds, and that the mayhem isn't worse. Had League possessed the .30-30 his uncle wrested from him earlier, the carnage might have been even more heartbreaking. But these are of little comfort now to Robbie Etchison and her young son, who must face the days and years ahead without Michael. For Robbie, the flurry of visitors and events over the next days are a blur. Condolences pour in from around the state and across the nation. And the day of the funeral arrives.
It was unreal. It was like I was watching something on TV, not me, but it was like something I was watching.
One moment that sticks out in my mind was when I was in front of the church with the other law enforcement officials, and I was sitting right beside, and I felt like I was a police officer that day, and I felt very proud.
This is the flag they gave to me at the grave site at the end of the services. Chief Michael Albert Spence and Drexwell Booker presented it to me. And when I took the flag, I knew then that it was final. It had to be true, but I still was in a dream world.
It was just tremendous how people turned out to give their respect and to share with the family. It was just a banner day to honor a person that was worthy of the honor that he had earned.
Etchison's partner, Mike Head, drops out of law enforcement only to return a short time later. In 1983, he becomes police chief of Monroe. Currently, Mike Head manages corporate security for a subsidiary of a Fortune 100 company. From the dark days of October, things get brighter for Robbie and Everett, as Robbie finds a new husband and Everett a father in the person of James Vaughn. Today, Michael Everett Etchison Jr. is involved with Walton County Youth as a way of honoring his father's memory.
I feel closer to my dad when I'm working with kids, but mainly like when I help out with the community kids, I feel real close to him because I feel that's something that he would do.
On this quiet street outside Monroe live Robbie and James Vaughn. Besides Everett, she and James have 2 grown children together. Their home sits on a street renamed for Robbie's late husband. There have been other honors accorded Michael Etchison by a grateful community. Each year since 2001, a scholarship is awarded by the Monroe Police Department in Michael Etchison's honor. Equally important is the Michael Etchison Award of Valor, given to a deserving officer for outstanding heroism, and the Georgia Fraternal Order of Police, named Post 94 in Etchison's honor in 1997. The Michael Etchison who grew up on Turner Street might never have dared dream of the honors now bestowed upon him. Instead, Etchison dreamed simply of being a good cop. Today, Monroe, Georgia goes on much as it did in the 70s, a quiet, peaceful place. Except for official observances, one might never guess that decades ago, this was the scene of shocking violence. But it was on that October day in 1977. A day that was this town's own 9/11. The day Michael Etchison became Monroe's first police officer to die in the line of duty.
In the Line of Duty was also made possible by contributions from the following citizens, businesses, and organizations.
At Walton Regional Medical Center, we're here for you.
We're here for your emergency.
For your physical therapy.
And your family.
For you.
With clinical excellence.
With compassionate care.
And advanced technology.
We're here for you. Today and in the future.
Walton Regional Medical Center. We're here for you.